Wouldn't it be more economical just to pay Susie Donick to delete those systems that are no longer on?
It would be. Yeah, we can't do it ourselves, actually.
You can't do it yourself,
yeah.
And if you were going to try, I mean, you have to factor in overtime and all those things.
Right.
But I just think it's more expedient just to pay people who know how to do it, get it done.
Yeah, they won't support our system if we try to take these out themselves. There's database things going on there that they don't want us messing with, and I'm perfectly okay with that. We did not really see it as something that we needed to spend money on, though, because we felt, well, they're not really hurting anything. They're just kind of these derelict locations. I would have to check. There's probably 6 or 8.
At least 5. Well, you know, to me, that's a perfect place to start. I don't have any problems with the collection code, but I would have problems with the circulation parameters.
Well, and that's kind of getting to what Mary Jane was just talking about. That's where it starts to get a little more complicated. Now, we do have libraries that have looked at their circulation parameters. The Goodhue County libraries went with their rule of 2, where they streamlined their rules quite a bit and standardized them.
And that has worked very well for them when I've spoken to them. And I think that, you know, that was a coming together that might have been a little difficult also, but they worked together through that. Once again, because so many of your patrons are using multiple libraries, not only through interlibrary loan, but, you know, they're working here and, you know, they're working in Rochester and they're living in Wabasha. Once again, it comes down to our patrons, I think, and I understand exactly what you're saying, because it's hard to change those things that we've grown accustomed to. But, you know, simplify.
The libraries in Fillmore County went through a similar process. They didn't work with us as much as Goodhue did. They just had a series of less formal discussions where they just all agreed amongst themselves on what a lot of their cert parameters were going to be, and then they contacted us and had us make the changes. So there's 2 counties in the region that have shown, 3, that have shown that it is possible.
Oh, sure.
Right. So that shows that it is possible. Is it always going to be possible in every instance? You know, I don't know.
I don't think I would mind looking at the parameters.
And I think that that's what they're saying.
I don't necessarily commit to changing them yet.
I think what the board was saying, you know, in a really positive way, is that we have come so far. And when you think of the complexity of what we ask Susie Donick and the SELCO staff to do on a daily basis, we've come so far. Maybe this is the opportune time to take a step and say, can we have a meeting of the minds? Can we just discuss it and see what we can come up with?
I think looking at it, probably we don't even know all the ones we have in place.
Yep.
10 to 1.
Yeah, I'm trying to hear you.
Start on a smaller scale too with your county. You have 3 libraries right in.
Exactly, which has also been discussed. And so that would be one of the things that, you know, maybe this is a good time as we think about maybe going to another automation. I mean, you know, if we change it, maybe this is a time at which we can make this just a little simpler for everybody.
I was going to say, I think it would be easier to start with collection codes and get that taken care of first.
I think all of us would be amenable to that.
And when we did ours, we were looking at not the staff and how we think about it. We're looking at the patron and how they look at things. And I think that's, to us, that's the most important thing. Patrons are, when they come in and they want things, especially nonfiction or something, Dewey numbers don't really mean a whole lot to most of them.
I know.
It's, you know, it's like foreign language. What they want to know is, do you have it or can you get it? And if you have it, where is it? And that's the way they perceive it. And they don't, if you have like juvenile fiction, but then you got some other things tagged to it, that makes no sense to them. They want to know basically, do you have it or not? And I think if we're going to start someplace, that's where we need to start. And different places will have different ideas on how they want to do their collection codes, but I think that most places probably can slim them down a little bit.
I think if there are 100 codes with only 9 items, I just... Isn't our group the one that approves different collection codes?
Yeah,
that's been going on.
But that's how that happened for years. This is
Nobody wanted to say no to their peers.
Right.
But I think it's also worth noting that we haven't added that many collection codes through that process.
And we
Most
have
of
been,
them were there on day one.
No. We started with like 218. Only. And it's only got 9 items. And I have that question. I bet I can pass up like this. I bet for 9 items, because here again, you're right. They only want to know if we have it. And they only want, I mean, I could put book number 1, book number 2, book number 3, and if that's the way they had to find them, they could find them.
Mm-hmm.
They don't care what the collection codes mean. They just want to be able to locate the material.
Or do you have a series and I want number 5?
Right.
But remember, collection code has nothing about the series.
No.
It is location in your building.
Right.
It is the location in the building, but what I'm saying is a lot of people really get hung up on what Peggy's saying. Do you have it? And then the series where it goes. But that's a whole different thing. I understand that.
Yeah, like I said, most of my patrons just want to know, can you walk to that shelf and find it for me? John and then Ann.
Hypothetical, probably to Donovan or whoever works with the database here. Say hypothetically, you drop that collection code from 378 down to 278 or 250, you get that goal. Performance-wise, do we have any idea what it does for the database for hit?
We don't know exactly how great a gain we would see. We know we would see an improvement. I don't know that I could quantify exactly how much.
Over time, what happens? We've got faster processes, but are we...
Exactly. And when we went virtual, the speed of the thing jumped immeasurably.
Right.
It was like going from a biplane to a fighter jet.
Right.
So that makes it very hard to quantify.
Some of these may have more, I'm assuming, given the design, and if somebody in the back end would know, if you modify the collection codes, we're talking milliseconds,
Yeah.
but if you modify the circulation parameters, then we maybe gain 30 seconds.
That's exactly what I was going to say,
Okay.
is that simplifying the collection codes would be helpful, but if you're really looking for system improvement, it's all about the parameters in the table. So cert parameter 29, all the various tables that are associated with the I-types, that's where that comes. And when I said in this document that Cersei Dynex has told us repeatedly that because of our complex database, they don't want to host us in their SaaS environment, those are the tables they've got in mind. So, talking about cert parameter 29, there are 2 very important uses that we use that for, local request only and the ability to suspend ILL at schools during the summertime. And those are very critical, but there's a lot of other stuff in that cert parameter. We have a lot of libraries that have very granular policies for certain patron types from other libraries. So if it's an adult from another library, we'll do this. If it's a student, we'll do something very different. There's a lot of that in cert parameter 29. There's also some other more specific things. We have a school that during the summertime, they don't want to be available for ILL except for one special collection. And they'll fill requests on that. That's in cert parameter 29. And it creates a lot of exceptions because we have to do it by B-type. There's a lot of interesting stuff. I almost called it oddball a second ago, and that's probably not a good word to describe it because these are things that those libraries have found useful or important for whatever reason. So I don't want to just dismiss them out of hand. But on the other hand, maybe it's time to have a discussion about some of these things and ask ourselves some hard questions.
The next piece I'm going to is more and more people go with the smartphones. Is enterprise, are we there?
Enterprise is not a mobile platform. It will work on a tablet, It will work on a tablet. I've tried it. It's not smartphone friendly.
Because when you're pushing it up, all this stuff has an impact on the little stuff. And that's the direction we're going for our patrons.
Right. And I think, Mary Jane, talked a little bit about the CERC rules for patrons. And I do think that that's something we really need to look at, although in a lot of ways that's one of the tougher things, I think, for us to look at.
The most difficult.
Yeah.
From my standpoint, and from having been involved in the system for so long, I realize that is going to be, that's the mountain. That's the elephant in the room. That's really, really difficult. But can we play together? Can we just start and think about it and broaden our horizons a little bit to see what we can do?
No, we're going to shrink horizons.
Well, that's no more going. But you know what I mean. At one point,
If we agree today that this is a process we can start, then I think one of the first things we would need to do is start running some reports against Horizon and find out how much of a curve we have on some of these things. What is the variance in checkout period? And maybe we'll find out that the majority of libraries are kind of in the same ballpark, even though they're not quite the same. That might give us something to talk about. Or it might not. I don't know. Maybe we're all over the place. We need to do some analysis. And we didn't try and do it for this, since this was really just kind of a conversation to see if we can even move forward.
I keep coming back to the fact that we could offer libraries like groups of search periods. So you're at 3 weeks, right? And you're really, and you simplified it, and you've done a lot of PR around everything in your library checked out for 3 weeks. Good Hugh's done 2 weeks for everything. So can you end up with whole clumps? So where it's not everybody gets to do everything, but you give a range of options. So we've got a library that probably has a different checkout period for every type of media, and then double, triple that, because they have different search periods for each type of format based on whether the person's a child, a young adult, or an adult.
Yeah. And every one of those is an exception in a table.
So, nonfiction gets checked out for one period if you're an adult versus a child versus a teenager, and the nonfiction gets checked out for a different set of search periods, and audiobooks versus videos versus DVDs versus VHS. Truly, it's like they went through and they picked every single type and figured out that I can have a different search period for every different type, and oh, by the way, I have 3 different kinds of patrons too. So 12. Thank you.
And
it's bizarre. And I'm thinking, can we just? There's no way I would consider 3 weeks for DVDs. I mean, my community would go nuts. But I'm thinking, can we at least come together with some ideas of, it doesn't have to be quite so complicated.
I mean, there's always going to be special types of materials, local history, for example, or in some cases maybe DVDs. And there's always going to be certain kinds of borrower types, guest cards, for example, where maybe you're going to want to do something different. But for the majority that are just basically on-the-shelf materials and just ordinary folk from the community, maybe we can simplify.
I don't think I have an issue with looking at it, but here again, I think that, like we do not, in our library, don't have DVD. Hmm? Yes, we know. I know. And we're not going to, Mary Jane. So that's where I'm coming up. Can we come up with groups of decisions? But what I'm asking is, if by doing something, does this parameter negate that type of option for us? No, I think that, we started out at the point when we launched the system that we had so many exceptions to the parameter 29, we broke the system. It crashed it. Okay. So we've simplified a bunch already. And I think if we can simplify some more, we can still allow for some amount of local customization and local decision without saying it's one size fits all, because that is not. Well, I think, to me, I need some information. Exactly what are we talking about? Exactly, tell me what is in parameter 29. Tell me what the collection codes are. I don't have enough information to make a decision.
So right now, you're asking if we'd like to discuss that, and it appears that we would.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been asked by the Buckham Memorial Board, please take a look at this.
Yeah.
And that's what we're coming to today.
And Mary Jane very tactfully approached Donovan and me after the last board meeting to say, I have a board resolution, and she didn't take it to the SELCO board. She asked us, how do we do this? And I said, this is the committee where it needs to start, because we either have board members who are on this committee, or we have elected librarian people who think about this stuff and who need to give us guidance. To take it to the full SELCO board, we've had that discussion several years ago, and the board was ready to declare simplify. And I don't think the SELCO, no, let me do it in the positive. I believe that the SELCO board thinks up here at about the 10,000-foot level. The SELCO board, albeit it has some very dedicated and knowledgeable people, isn't working even at the 2,000-foot level, and is certainly not in the trenches with all of you. So we need to get down here where we can get some practical advice, and then take something to the board to say, you know, and maybe we never even have to take it to the board. If the library, if all of you agree that we're going to simplify some of this stuff, then it's operational. But, you know, Mary Jane's board is frustrated enough that they've directed her to go to the SELCO board, and so she's carefully working through the process.
And I can go on. I could go on. And it's frustrating. You know,
is frustration the right word for it? Or
yes, and I think it's frustration of my being on the board because I was in the trenches, because I worked with it, and most of the board members, of course, haven't worked. They don't, you know, they're not like you guys. They're not behind the desk. They're not dealing with the papers.
But they do know that they are questioning why they have different checkup periods and all the stuff that comes to their library.
Right, because their patrons will come to them. So I think I come at it from a little bit of a different standpoint than a lot of the other board members because I stood behind the desk.
And then we're going to wrap it up.
Yeah,
Sherry.
I have.
Okay.
I think I see two goals coming, and one we're more behind perhaps than, or, you know, certainly I'm more behind simplifying for Verizon to work better and open up our different possibilities for moving to different sorts of systems. So, and, you know, all the low-hanging fruit, all of the taking the bolts off the Eiffel Tower to make Verizon work better, I'm 100% behind. But in terms of consolidating policies so that the patron experience is the same from library to library to library, I think that's an unattainable goal, and for a lot of different reasons. And I think that, you know, we can, even if we get down to almost the same, we're not going to be the same. So that you're always going to be explaining and saying, no, it's this, it's that, it's this, it's that. So I think that it will be, when we're talking about low-hanging fruit and what is the easiest, if you're talking about the patrons experiencing the same everywhere, easiest would be to say everything is 2 weeks everywhere. Okay, that's easy. But we can't, that to me can't be done. But to say, okay, we're going to get rid of those 100 little collection codes somehow and rehome all that stuff, all right, to me, that's low-hanging fruit from Clean Up Horizon kind of point of view. To me, they're different goals, and I think that we'll have different buy-in for each of them.
Maybe baby steps is a good thing. Well, and I keep thinking that maybe what we need to do is sort of make this a year-long project where we can...
Oh, I think a 2-year-long project.
Yeah. And there may be things that we can't do A without doing B. But are there things that we can do and then watch it a month, and then do something else and watch it a month?
Yeah, baby step.
I think it would be useful to have charts of, like, the patron and search privilege parameters that various libraries have, because we made those up, I think, 10 years ago on our own, and we were kind of in the dark.
Curious, and we would also need to arrange that by level of support for that library or level of material they have, which has a real effect on how long the stuff gets checked out.
Right. No. talking about like our regular patrons are allowed to check out, 30 of this type of material code and X of this, I forget what that parameter is called, but, we just kind of went through and said, oh, this sounds good, and, and it has to add up to whatever we had decided our limit was. Yeah, right. I think we set ours at 99, but it would be good to see what other people have because, I'm sure a lot of those could be consolidated.
All right, so Mary Kay, I think, was trying to wrap us up that we sort of have a consensus that we're going to start studying, and we'll go slowly, and we'll bring everything back to this group, and you can tell your boards that there was an earnest discussion, and we appreciate them bringing it forward from a board and governing point of view, and it's on the to-do list. Okay. Announcements, anybody?
Is the cake for a 10-year anniversary?
No, the cake is because it was left over.
Moving on. Thank you. And Cindy arranged that on the platter so carefully.
To make it look good, right? Sherry is correct. In September, we migrated to Horizon in September of 2003. So we are fast approaching the 10-year anniversary. I have a request that we do not meet in September because Jonathan will not be here and I am uncomfortable having this meeting without his expertise, which is not to say that Tyler or other staff members might not be able to bring you relevant information, but I think that we are a better group when we have Donovan here. And he has some family issues that he has to take care of. Regrettably, but that's the week he has to be gone. So I would say October. Okay.
Otherwise, you would just say, oh, yeah, they can do that just by popping a CD. Donovan will do that when he gets back.
That's what I expect Tyler to jump forward.
We're by attorney, and I'm going to tell Diane later. She's going to be here in October.
This is our own Terrace moment.
Yes. Okay, thanks, guys. We are adjourned.